Our next topic for the day. Various battles over welfare and sundry issues continue to rage in the Nigerian university system. Now, the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities has drawn a line in the sand by announcing its readiness to commence an indefinite nationwide strike from Thursday, 4th of July, if the federal government fails to pay its 4-month withheld salary. At its 48th regular National Executive Council NEC meeting, SSANU noted that the federal government has failed to fulfill its promises to its members. Recall that SSANU began the fight for its salary arrears in 2022 after its prolonged nationwide strike. Today, it does appear that we're gearing up for another strike, this time by the non-academic staff and, non-academic staff.
They also hinted that the academic staff, ASU, they will join them in that strike. Anyway, if the non-academic are not working, there's no way ASU can work effectively. Most of the universities we have in Nigeria today, most of them have just completed their end of season. And some students are waiting, call-up letter to go and serve. So you can imagine what will happen. What I just discovered is that we have a national, all governments, most governments in Nigeria have a national pension for not keeping to promise. In 2009, when students have to stay at home for 9 months, you can't believe that most of the things ASU and NASU are fighting for today that has been there for probably 10 years. Nobody is ready to implement agreement that a government official was present and signed. When you sign an agreement, it is an obligation on you to fulfill it. Yes, this 4 months salary, they are talking about 4 months salary. Let us assume every 3 months they are paying one month. The thing will have been over by now. Let us assume that they cannot pay it in bulk because of cash flow of government. Let us assume that they are paying it 1 month now. In 3 months' time, you pay another month. Before the close of the year, you will have succeeded in clearing the arrears. But the thing is that I think government should be much more, when they sign on paper, it's not necessarily mean a ministry official or a minister signing. But you also have to know that there's capacity of government to pay, to meet that thing. If the government has no capacity to fulfill that agreement, there's no point in signing it. You keep on discussing. Like now, federal government and states and labor, they are still talking up to tomorrow about the minimum wage. I think it is to avoid a situation whereby somebody will just sign minimum wage, 100,000 naira, and most states will not be able to pay it and will go back to the trenches again. Right. So I think government should be aware of the implications of agreement. Either they are under pressure to persuade these striking unions to go back to work, so that they just sign any document presented to them. They should also look at the financial implications and their capacity to pay and to honor. But it will appear as if you have a national pension for no honor. Just go to the table, don't want them, let us sign and sign. 6 years, they are still on it.
So on Tuesday, that was yesterday, I spoke with the SSANU president on the news, and then he mentioned that these withheld salaries, their counterparts that are the teaching staff have actually been paid, but then they were exempted, their own payments have been withheld. So why should that happen?
Actually, the genesis of this pay was when they went on strike in 2022, and the federal government invoked no pay, no work, no pay. And eventually they called off the strike, and the government then assured that there will be no victimization of any member for going on strike. And eventually, ASU and NASU actually called his own strike off. SSANU, NASU, they called theirs off ahead of the ASU. And ASU has been on its own pay and all of that. I think even ASU was paid this salary a couple of months back. It's not too long that ASU got paid. And I also think that NASU is complaining now because ASU has been paid and they have not been paid. I believe that SSANU will be paid theirs. But I also think that ASU has never kept quiet about its own arrears. He's been talking about it. I think what successive governments have been doing about unionism in academic institutions is to kind of play them against one another, a kind of divide and rule game, you know, and it works for nobody but for government at the end of the day. As of the time that SSANU was calling off his own strike at that time, It's like government was working more with it against ASU. Then, if you talk to ASU members, they will explain to you that, okay, SSANU, no problem. But now, SSANU is facing his own. I think what the unions should understand is that they should face government with their problems, and that they shouldn't allow the government to use them against one another and do any kind of divide and rule. Because they have seen now that the union with the loudest voice is being heard at the detriment of the other. So I want to believe really that SSANU will be paid, but if they want to go on strike, it's their right, it's within their rights.
But they'll be meeting on Thursday, and they hope that at the end, or in the course of that meeting, they would agree on something, because that Thursday will be the expiration of the 2-week ultimatum they give to government to make those payments. And another issue on the front burner for them is actually on the minimum wage. And they are faulting the call by South governors that, state government should pay based on their capabilities. Talking about the national minimum wage now. But that hasn't even been announced just yet. We don't know what the figure will be.
Well, actually, left to me, you see, we should solve this problem once and for all. For God's sake, Nigeria is a federation. And the 36 states we have in Nigeria, all of them take money from the appropriation account, federation account. Each of the states, left to me, should be allowed to pay what they can afford. Nigeria is not a unitary state. You cannot earn the same salary in Lagos and Niger State. You cannot compare the two states. You cannot even compare Lagos with your state. Neither can you compare Rivers State with Boshi State. Let them go the whole hog and sit down, look at the financial. Maybe labor people, they have researchers among them. Let them go and research at the financials of each of the 36 states. Because if they approve a particular amount now, NSA has said that they have no right not to pay them. It is wrong. We are not a unitary state. Nigeria is a federation. And the capacity of each of the 36 states is different from each other. So that is the danger in saying it's a national minimum wage. That is, it cannot go beyond a particular level. But we also have to look at the capacity of the state to pay. If it costs around 2,000 naira to rent an apartment in Minna, you know that to rent a room in Lagos, you pay about 15,000. So a worker in Lagos and Rivers State, those are the two highest states in Nigeria. People should not look at the fact that Lagos is paying 100,000. Those in Boshi or in Minna, they want to earn 100,000. It's not realistic. Let us solve the problem. I want the committee to solve the problem, and the National Assembly to solve the problem once and for all, that it doesn't have to be uniform. But there's what they call living wage. Workers will always tell you that they are not being paid living wage all over the world. So the definition of living wage varies from one country to the other.
All right. And I think for the SSANU and NASU, other issues they are talking about is infrastructure. In the universities, how much of a standard, do they maintain? Are the students actually able to get the knowledge, to acquire the knowledge they are in those places to get?
You see, when these unions go on strike,
yes,
let me just put it first of all, that the SSANU, NASU talking like this, I will say they are fighting for themselves. If it is ASU, I will agree that they talk about infrastructure and the rest, because they've been talking about it. And I will tell you today that most of the developments that we have in our tertiary institutions are products of the struggles of the academic staff union of universities. So many things, so many improvements. Talk of TED fund, talk of sending people abroad for further studies, researches, and the rest. They are products of the agitations. And even all these buildings all around. But, of course, it is convenient for SSANU to also talk about infrastructural decay now, which is obvious. But I also want to believe that a lot of interventions have gone into this decay in the past 15 to 20 years in Nigeria. And it now depends on how each university is even deploying the resources that are available from the federal government. See, I went to one institution in Ogun State Federal Polytechnic, Ilaro. if you see the number of buildings that TET fund alone funded in that university, you would think that that university is being funded solely funded by TET fund. And that is the way they allocate money from time to time to all these universities. But we also need to query the way these resources are being expended. We need to also look into the corruption that is in our tertiary institutions. And when SSANU is talking about this, SSANU is also part. SSANU are the ones that are executing projects in universities. They should also be more concerned about how the resources are being spent. I am aware that a lot of resources go into projects in universities, in polytechnics, in federal colleges of education in Nigeria. Because, look, 2% of every money that goes into the consolidated revenue account is devoted to these projects in our universities. So it's a lot of fund. They have a lot of fund at their disposal. But some universities, they make good use of them. Some, you don't know where the money goes. So SSANU should investigate that. They should ensure that those in authorities in their universities are doing what they should do, and they should ensure that corruption is eliminated. They shouldn't just be coming out to be talking about the infrastructural decay because we know we can all, that resonates with everybody. There are deeper things that they can look into that will save the tertiary institutions in the country.
And they also spoke about councils for the universities, for them to be inaugurated.
Well,
that
is another thing.
Well, I think I know about a month ago, the first list was published, which was heavily criticized, both within the political class and the academic circles. The government concentrated on that one about 3 weeks ago. I think they just have to give government time. But like she said, the problem we have in Nigeria is not the side of resources. Even when your resources are minimal, it is how you apply the resources. Go to most of the institutions, you will see abandoned projects. Either somebody or somebody. The governing council of the universities have to sit tight. It is the SSANU people that should hold them to sit tight, because governing council approves all the projects that is either funded by TET fund or federal government. So we have to get people of impeccable character in governing council of all higher institutions in Nigeria. Because the problem of Nigeria, I still believe that Nigeria can still afford to have functional tertiary education in spite of our challenges. But how are we going to disburse the fund? That is the problem.
Or how is the fund disbursed, being expended?
Being expended. See, that's because when it
who is monitoring
it? We need it. Yes, they are asking for autonomy for universities, but autonomy comes with responsibility. If you cannot show that the money that has been given to you has been properly used, then your autonomy will be seriously questioned.
All right, then. Well, we wait to see how the meeting goes tomorrow, Thursday, but then we hope that also before then, they're able to dialogue with government, and we don't have a breakdown of work in our institutions, because these children need to learn. They already lost some months, and this is not the time for us to get to this point again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's look at another matter. The popular saying that the heart of man is desperately wicked has been made manifest with a nasty discovery in Rivers State, South Nigeria. The immediate past commander of the local vigilante group, identified as Felix Nwabokata, was caught in possession of 2 human skulls and bones by operatives of the State Police Command. The arrest was part of a clampdown on the excesses of a Security and Peace Advisory Committee in Omoko and other parts of the state, following numerous complaints about the operations, as well as clashes between the vigilante group and other security agencies. Imagine a group with the responsibility of safeguarding the community now being caught, in this den of human skulls and all. What's your reaction, Olabisi?
It's sad. It's sad. You can imagine, and the leader of that group is the one we are talking about here. Because if it is not the leader, you can say, okay, if it's an ordinary member, that there is hope that that can be cautioned, punished, or whatever.
All right, so we need to take a moment.
Okay.
All right, so let's